Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ken Ladden, and Citywide TV presents. Listening up, we're going to talk about diabetes on our show, and I got just a few facts or stats for you. 29.1 million people in the United States have diabetes. And let me just share some more information with you. About 21 million people are diagnosed, and 8.1 million people are undiagnosed. And on our show, we're going to talk about the signs and symptoms of diabetes. I'm sure if you're watching this show, you may be a diabetic, or you know someone. We all have people in our family who has this disease, but it is controllable and it is manageable with proper care from your doctor and eating right and exercising. So we're going to talk about all of those things on our show just to really help you. Thank you all so very much for coming on the show. Raymond, let me start with you. The reason I thought about doing this show on diabetes because we're getting close to the holiday season, and we know there are a lot of parties and a lot of social events, and we love to eat all the sweets, and everybody's having something. And sometimes we have to really watch where we eat, whether we're diabetic or not. It can really hurt us in more ways than one. So when we talk about diabetes and people who are watching this show and people who are affected by this disease, the good thing about it is controllable and manageable.
It sure is, Ken. It's one of those diseases where, particularly if you catch it early, you can get rid of all those symptoms and not have to deal with that other than just watching what you eat and how you exercise and whatnot. But if you let it get out of hand, it can really wreak havoc on the body, cause you all kinds of peripheral problems, internal problems, and that's what you really want to avoid. Okay.
Now tell me about the organization you're part of. Your group is what?
It's called Diabetes Assessment and Management Centers, and that's our sole focus is diabetes, educating people about it, treating them, and letting them know what the right lifestyle is so they can put that disease behind them and live a full life.
Right. Well, Casey, let me ask you, because you're a nurse practitioner, and like I said before, all of us, have family members who are diabetics, and some of us have had, lost family members because of, diabetes. And I know I have, and I know there are quite a few people in my family who now suffers from the disease. The thing about it is that, it gets out of hand and people begin to lose limbs and other things happen, to lose their sight and go on dialysis and all of that. What usually happens in the cycle when someone finds out that they are, diabetic? What should they start to do first?
Well, usually by the time they actually are diagnosed with diabetes, they have been a diabetic for 2 years.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And so whenever they come to our clinic, we teach them, there's a 9-week algorithm that we do for them to see me as a provider, as well as we do a 12-week curriculum. So I think that once you're diagnosed with diabetes, that information on how to manage your diabetes is so critical, because once you get that information early, then you can avoid the complications of diabetes.
Right.
Some healthcare providers, due to the office being so busy, are not able to teach, and so that's why Diabetes Assessment Management Center is unique, because that's all we do. All we do is treat diabetes.
Right. You say it's 2 years before someone is actually diagnosed. So I guess when you talk about the signs and symptoms, because 2 years, I'm sure there's something that's going on with your body. And I've always heard that you urinate more, you're thirsty, and those kinds of things. Do people just not recognize that, or they just say, okay, it's no big deal, I'm just drinking more water, I'm just going to the bathroom more? If you're older, you probably think it's just a process of aging, that I'm just using the bathroom more than often. When do you know that it's more than just aging, that there's something that's seriously wrong, that you need to really have some attention done?
You're correct, because we live in Louisiana, it's hot, okay? And so we attribute, it's so hot, that's why I'm drinking more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the reason I'm peeing more is because I'm drinking more.
Exactly, right.
And I'm always hungry because, so those are your 3 cardinal signs, that you're drinking a lot, but drinking to the point where you can't quench that thirst.
Okay.
Like water is not quenching it.
Right.
And then, of course, if you're drinking a lot, your insulin, your blood sugars are rising, you are going to pee more and you will be more hungry. So if you have these symptoms, if you have a family history of diabetes, that is
family history.
Family history, but the symptoms, actually healthcare provider yearly, when you go for your yearly physical, to definitely get that test done. A lot of your males do not go to the doctors.
Right.
Okay, and so
We're doing better.
you are, y'all are.
Cassie, we're doing better.
You are, y'all doing better. But usually it's the females that, you know, once a year they go to get their physicals and they pick it up. For guys, by the time I get them, like I said, their A1Cs are usually really, really high.
Really? Okay. Well, Sonny, you're a diabetic, so tell us, you know, for how long? Because, you know, Casey is saying that most people, you know, it's 2 years or longer before they really know or diagnosed with it. So tell us about how long before you really knew that you were a diabetic.
I probably went a couple of years before I knew, and then I went to the family doctor for something else, and she said, you know, you're diabetic, and I said, okay. So it's been about 10 years, but I didn't really listen to her. I just kind of did my own thing anyway, and I paid a little bit of attention about the sugars and stuff, but it wasn't the right way. And I had a good friend of mine, I guess about 6 months ago, told me about the diabetic, you know, management assessment there. And so I went over there, and I've had great results.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you went, what did you see it in the signs that Cassie just shared with us? She talked about, you know, being thirsty and never able to quench that thirst. You know, as also, you know, hungry a lot. None of that. Urinating a lot. Did you see any of that?
I did.
So what did you chop it up to? Just what?
Well, working outside, I thought I drank a lot of water because I worked outside, and I like to eat, so I thought that was it. And I stayed hungry all the time.
Really?
And like you said earlier, the peeing a lot, you know, I thought it was because I was getting older.
Right.
You know?
Okay. Right. So Raymond, I guess the message we want to get out here. So should you have when you have your annual physical, and we are hoping that everyone at least goes to the doctor at least once a year. We know some people have to go more because of different illnesses, but if you say, you know, you're healthy or whatever, then at least once a year. And men, you really need to go. I know your wife has been telling you you've been peeing a lot. It's not all because you're drinking so much beer, but it may be some other things that are going on there. So the thing is that you need to go and just be tested for it.
Ken, yeah, I can tell you a couple things about all this. It all links together, really. I was in the Air Force, and I got a physical every year. But guess what? They don't test your blood sugar. That's not part of the physical.
So you're a diabetic?
I am a diabetic.
Okay.
But I went for a physical as a flyer, as a pilot, and that's a separate thing. I do it outside the Air Force, and I have to do a urine test as part of their drug testing regimen. And in my urine, they found my sugar was so high, they of course went to a blood test then and found out I was off the scale. I was off the glucometer. It was over 450. That's as high as that one would read. And so then I found out I'm a diabetic, and they sit me down there, and they tell me all the stuff I need to do or whatever, and I'm sitting here thinking my job depends on me not being diabetic, so I just lost 2 jobs because I was in Air Force Reserve at the same time.
Right.
So I lost both of them. But it was funny because I probably had it for 2 years because I'd been deployed the year before. I ran 6 miles a day. I went swimming every day. I was biking. I was competing in triathlons. I was eating clean according to Bill Phillips' Body for Life.
Right.
So I wasn't doing all that stuff,
Right.
yet I was tired every day. I was going to the bathroom like crazy. I was drinking water like crazy, but I thought it's because I'm running and all this stuff.
Right.
And it's probably because I had diabetes.
Right.
Just didn't know it.
So let me ask you, so do you lose weight or gain weight? Because I'm looking at Raymond, who's a good size and nice height. So, you know, he's not overweight. So what should want someone to look at it? If they're losing weight or if they're gaining weight, what's the prognosis for that?
And usually, so Raymond is a type 1. Okay. And so there's a difference between type 1 and
explain
type
that, Cassie,
2.
for us.
So with a type 1, Raymond's pancreas does not work at all. So something in his body, autoimmune, has caused his pancreas to shut off, and so his pancreas produces no insulin.
Okay.
That's the phenomenon about type 1 that, you know, right now they don't know if it was a virus. No one knows what is causing the autoimmune process that occurs. So he's a type 1. Normally you see type 1s in children, normally.
Right.
A type 2 is usually due to our diets. So usually a type 2 would be someone who's a larger size when they're diagnosed. But like I said, I've had a patient who same size as Raymond that I was like, okay, he's a type 1, but really he was a type 2. When they're first diagnosed, sometimes they lose weight, a lot of weight at the beginning. So they may come smaller. So, you know, really size does not determine if you're going to be a type 1 or type 2.
Right.
Okay, it's whether your pancreas, you know, is still able to produce insulin or not.
Right, okay. And Sonny, you are what? Type what?
2.
You're type 2? Okay. And so you've taken the class, so you had, I guess one of the things you really have to do as a diabetic is change your eating habit. So how has that been? Because once healthy living, it's great, but we know we really like to eat, all kinds of food, and we live in the South, and of course Louisiana, where you have some of the best food and best cooks, anywhere in the country. So you have to really change the way you're eating.
I did.
And that, I'm sure that was difficult.
It was. I thought I ate vegetables before, but I didn't.
Really?
I eat a lot of vegetables now.
You eat a lot of vegetables now?
I do.
Right.
A lot of fruits and vegetables. And being I was a diabetic and all, excuse me, I knew that I wasn't supposed to have a lot of sugar, so I kind of stayed away from the fruits, but I found out that the fruits were, the good type. And so I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables now, and I've lost a lot of weight being on their program too.
Really? Okay.
And you're off all your meds, right?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. So you don't take anything, you didn't do, did you ever take the shots?
No, I took medicine.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. That's a good point. I'm glad you
Pills.
said that, because I've heard, people who are diagnosed as, diabetics, they begin to really work on eating right and exercise and doing all the right things, and now they are off their medicine. So that's possible.
Right. Yes, at our clinic, we have a very good success rate of reversing diabetes, where we are
Okay.
able to get the patients, if they truly exercise and eat right, their A1C blood sugars come down beautifully. We take him off meds, and he's able to maintain it without any meds, just by
Really?
exercising and eating correctly, yes.
Right. Let me ask this. I know some people who are watching, they have the shot, and some people take the pills. What's the difference? Is one more severe than the other?
Well, actually, the pills, they work in different facets. Some work in the gut, some work in from the liver. But with a patient newly diagnosed, it depends where your A1C is. If you come to the clinic and your A1C is above 9 and you are peeing a lot, drinking a lot, always hungry, then you get insulin. If you come with a A1C of 6, 7, we start you off on pills, we do diet and exercise. So it just all depends. There's an algorithm of how you treat it.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break. We're talking about, diabetes, and again, I'm sure if you're watching this show, you may have been diagnosed as a diabetic, or you know someone who is, or your better half, or your friend, or someone that you know close to you, and you want them to be able to live a long, healthy life, and that's possible. With eating right and exercising and doing all the things that your doctor tells you to do. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about some other things that's related to diabetes, and really help you to get out and do some things that can really change, reverse. If you're taking pills or either taking the shots, it can be reversed. So stay with us, and we'll be right back. All right, if you are a diabetic, or if you know someone who has diabetes, it's very common, and I'm sure that you probably do. But the good thing about it, it can be reversed. We have Sonny on the show, who's now not taking any medicine or not taking any insulin shots. But it really takes a lot of hard work. I'm not going to say that it's easy, but healthy living and healthy eating, and it's getting close to the holiday season and all of the the parties, and we know we like to cook and really eat. So I'm always wondering, so how do you change that, Raymond? You're being a diabetic yourself, and I'm sure you're going to go to some really nice parties and some really nice functions, and they're going to have plenty of food. They're going to have the table spread. So how do you discipline yourself, knowing that you shouldn't partake in all of that?
Well, I tell you, it can be difficult, that's for sure. But what I like to start with is I like to eat at home first. Eat something healthy, fill up on something good, so when I go there, I'm not starving. I mean, you don't want to go in a fasted state where you just can't wait to eat. So that's number one for me.
Right.
Secondly, I'll bring my wife, and she's a good governor. She'll keep an eye on me or whatever. But
great.
A lot of times diabetics don't want people to know they're a diabetic, but it's good to have your friends know and kind of help you, guide you away from this, or say, hey, did you see they have something better over here?
Right.
There's a vegetable tray over here, a fruit tray, or whatever. So use those people. They can help you out.
Right. So you're saying a support system is really great, and nobody has to know that. I mean, a friend can come and say, well, because most parties, most events, they're going to have a vegetable tray, a fruit tray. I mean, that's common, even though they may have the wings and the fried fish or whatever, and all the other stuff. But that you can choose some really healthy choices when you're going to different events or whatever. So what are you about to say, Cassie?
I like to tell my patients that you're going to have all the other foods at the house the candy yams and
Oh,
the rice
Lord.
dressing and potato salad, but bring the vegetables. A lot of times, at those gatherings, there's not a salad, there's no green beans.
Right.
Bring what you can eat, so
Okay.
that the patient's able to eat that dish. And like I tell the patients, Thanksgiving is not the day after. That meal have a little, a little piece of this, a little piece of that, but then tomorrow get back on it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Don't just keep eating on the Thanksgiving dinner Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So really, moderation.
Moderation
is
is
the
the
key with anything. It doesn't mean that you can't have a piece of pie or whatever, but you can't, eat half of it
Right.
and then take
Right.
the other half home and
Right.
get on the couch and eat the other half.
Right.
Moderation is
Right.
the key.
Thanksgiving is once a year.
Right. Okay. Then we have Christmas. So, Sonny, tell us now how you've been able to do it, because you're not on any medicines. Am I right? So apparently you are pretty disciplined. But someone out there is, who can't resist, that particular cake or that particular meat that they know that perhaps is not healthy for them. So how do you do it?
Well, just like I said, discipline. I just, instead of eating like I used to eat, if I want a piece of cake, I get a little bite of it, And like Casey said, tomorrow's another day, so you act right tomorrow, But I got a wife at home too that is very well.
Is your wife diabetic?
No,
Okay, all right.
she's just very health conscious. She's helped me through this. Between her and Casey, they've got me through it because I'm having to stand in front of one or the other all the time.
Right. Let's talk about, and this is really when it's severe, and again, we probably all know people have had relatives, when they start to lose limbs or toe, or, they have to have a foot amputated, or sometimes I guess both feet in a certain case. What happens in that situation? If it can be reversed, people can change their eating habits and exercise, and certainly we're not being judgmental. Why would someone not do something without trying to make sure that this doesn't happen? And I know it's difficult. I'm not making light of it, but I guess I would think if the doctor told me, if you don't watch it, this could happen. I think it would scare me to really trying to eat better and exercise and just do a little bit better.
Yeah, sometimes by the time they are diagnosed, they're in denial. Okay,
Oh, okay.
This is not easy because, and like I tell the patients, you don't wake up tomorrow and you don't have to face this.
Right.
This is something you're going to be dealing with every day. It could be you don't want to tell your family, you don't want to tell nobody around you. They hear that diabetes is such a bad disease. So whatever the stigma is that sometimes they're not ready to deal with it at that point.
Right.
And so I would hate for it to be to the point where you are losing your limbs, now you're ready to hear the info. That's why when they're diagnosed, if you can give the info to them initially, they're more apt. When they come to my office, they're like, you tell me what to do, I want to get off these meds.
Right.
Once they're at the point where they're ready to hear it, they're ready to do everything that they take. So that's why at the very diagnosis is critical, very critical for those patients. We want to prevent the damage.
Right.
Once the damage is done,
Right.
once the the toes
Cannot
turn
be
black,
unprevented. Right.
no, you can't prevent. Yes,
Right.
So right now, is we're at the point where we want to prevent these complications from occurring.
Right. So were you on any medicine, Raymond?
I am, Ken. I have
You
I take a little shot every morning from this,
Okay.
and also have a long-acting one. This is a short-acting one, which you do with each meal, and then you do a long-acting one that gives out insulin throughout the day.
He's
Okay.
insulin dependent. So Raymond's pancreas makes no insulin, so
Really?
he has to give his body insulin.
Right.
Okay, his pancreas makes insulin. So what you want to do is let the body go through the process of making insulin. And so now he has learned that there are certain food items that will raise his blood sugar straight up, and we teach you that.
Right.
And so if he avoids it, then the body's able to process.
Did you? We know history is very important. Whenever you go to a doctor, they always ask you about your history, your family medical history. So, a history of diabetes in your family?
No, Ken, I
Really?
didn't.
Wow.
But it's important to. I want to re-emphasize what she was talking about. Diabetes is progressive, and that's part of the challenge. Is that one cookie isn't going to kill you, but you're going to eat another one and another one, and over time, all that stuff accumulates. And the problem is, you don't just wake up one day and all of a sudden you're a diabetic. It's been progressing for a long period of time.
Right.
And that's the thing you had to combat, because a lot of us, we're like, well, what's one little thing? Well,
Right.
one little thing is not much, but you've had 20 years of eating one little thing, so they've added up. So,
Right.
And that's the same thing when you're recovering out of it. A lot of times you don't realize how bad you are, how much energy you've lost, or until you start getting better and you're like, wow, I feel like $1 million. I felt like 50 cents 2 weeks ago, but now I feel like $1 million.
Right. And people, a lot of times, is dialysis one of the reasons
A complication
complication
of diabetes.
Of
yes.
diabetes. Okay. And that's because what? I mean, everybody doesn't, everybody's not on dialysis who's, a diabetic. So what happens with the people who are on dialysis?
Well, the thing about diabetes, besides diabetes, they have what's called comorbid conditions. They can have hypertension.
Oh, okay.
And so you don't just get diabetes.
There are other things
you
that
have high
work.
cholesterol. You have
Okay.
other things. So what happens is the high blood pressure will also cause damage to your kidneys as well as the high blood sugars.
Oh.
And so we watch that closely, and that's one of the complications. You don't control the diabetes; those high numbers will cause damage, and yes, you can at some point damage those where you need dialysis on every other day basis.
I know some people go to the doctor and they say, okay, you're pre-diabetes, whatever. And they say, cut down on your salt. I've heard people say, well, I went to the doctor. He said, I'm borderline there, so I need to, cut down on my salt and cut down on, eating a lot of sweets and other things. So when if you're watching this show, you know that you've been borderline or pre-diabetes? Is that good? Okay. Then that's when you really start working on making sure that it doesn't
Progress.
Get worse, progress. Okay. And so at that time, you should start doing just what someone else is doing who's a diabetic?
Yes.
If you're okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because someone out there watching say, well, I don't have it yet, but I'm close to it. But the sensible thing, Raymond, to do is to start eating, exercising right now, because you do know beforehand. So that's a kind of plus for you. In a sense, right.
And the problem is we're exporting our culture around the world, and Americans got a lot of diabetes, but it's spreading to other countries because they're starting to eat the way we do.
Right.
They're starting to be a little less active. They're adopting some of the lifestyles we have that are not healthy for a long, healthy,
Right. So a couple of people, I know some people at my church and other places, and sometimes they have to, I know they go out because sometimes they have to, use the bathroom. But sometimes they say they feel really dizzy in the mornings, and sometimes they say they feel their sugar level is going low or going down. I'm not sure how that feeling is. So a peppermint will do the job. I've seen that. Is that true? Sometimes we see things that are not always true because we don't go to the right people like you, but we hear other people say. So should someone who's a diabetic keep little peppermints or something, juice or something?
If someone feels the symptoms will be shaky, like you said, dizzy, maybe nervous, their heart start beating fast, that's symptoms of hypoglycemia, and that is a blood sugar less than 70. So if a patient checks their blood sugar and anytime that number is less than 70, what they're having is a hypoglycemic episode. And what we teach patients is you can buy it in the store. They're called glucose tablets.
Okay.
And they would take 4 glucose tablets. And they're like Tums, they come in different flavors, and then they recheck their blood sugar in 15 minutes. If your blood sugar is going down so fast, sometimes it takes a while for your body to recover that loss. And so I've had a patient that went from 60 to 30, and then after she did another treatment of 4 glucose tablets and she rechecked again in 15 minutes, her blood sugar went up. But there's a correct way to treat it. So you definitely want to do the glucose tablets, but also if you had juice or a regular Coke, this is the only time you don't have no diet. Okay, because you need the sugars.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
So you need.
Do peppermints work? I hate to, because I always see people like, give her a peppermint.
That's like if you don't have nothing else, yes, the peppermint will work. But people also eat a candy bar, and that fat from that chocolate will not cause your blood sugar to go up initially. Remember, you need sugar now.
Okay.
So I try to steer away from the candies.
All right.
But yes, if it's not a sugar-free peppermint, if it's a regular peppermint, it will get your blood sugar up.
Right.
But usually we do juice or sodas, and then I'll tell patients to do a tablespoon of honey.
Oh, okay.
We'll also get, because it's sugar, it will get their blood sugar straight up.
So, Sonny, as I was asking Raymond, so diabetes runs in your family?
Yeah, my dad's diabetic.
Okay, your dad. Okay. All right.
And usually with the type 2, they have some family history, but a type 1, there's usually.
Really? Okay. And I think one of the things that we've been hearing quite a bit, that because of the childhood obesity, that we're seeing more children diagnosed with diabetes than ever in our history. That because being overweight and of course less exercising and all of this. So how do we turn that around? I mean, I know it's going to take a lot of work.
And the biggest thing is doing something physically active as a family for 30 minutes. I tell, because I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner as well as family. And so I encourage the parents that the kids may not see it as exercise, take them bowling, take them skating, take them to the park. Y'all go play tennis as a family, and the patient, they don't see it as an exercise.
All right, okay, great. Thank you all. Listen, we're going to take a break and we're going to have some couples to come on there because support is really great when you have someone who understands your disease and they work with you by making sure they're preparing good meals for you and making sure you're just not eating things that you shouldn't and that you exercise and getting out the house, just walking down the street, a couple times, whatever you can do. So stay with us. We're talking about diabetes and really if you are a person who has been diagnosed, you don't have to give up. It's treatable and it's manageable. So stay with us and we'll be right back.